So welcome everyone as we continue this virtual summit, teaching about how to thrive in seasons of uncertainty. And I'm sure all of us would agree that right now we're facing one of the most uncertain times that we can remember. Like I have no memory of a time quite like this. And there's a level of craziness outside in the world. And so the purpose of this virtual summit is to give us the tools and to help us access greater levels of personal power so we can know how to thrive in this season of winter as we navigate this time of change, how to do so powerfully and intentionally. And on today's training, we're going to be focusing specifically on the art of leadership and the skills of influence, which are two of the most important skills if you want to thrive in a time of uncertainty. And we're going to be having a discussion about what conscious leadership actually looks like and what the world needs more of. And then we're going to be talking about the art of influence and what are the skills that we get to develop in order to be more effective leaders on the planet. And I'm really excited for this conversation because I know that for me, I feel that each one of us has been prepared in unique ways for times like this. I know without question for the last 6, 7, 8 years, I've in my mind kept having visions of this change, this evolution that's happening on the planet, and just knowing that at some point things were going to shift in dramatic ways. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen in this particular scenario, but what I do know is as continued announcements are being made, and yesterday I heard Disneyland and Disney World and all the Disney cruises and all the other cruise lines were closed. Last night, together with a bunch of my family, Allison had flown into town from Arizona, had my kids and their mom, and we were all excited because months and months and months ago we had bought these tickets to go to this Broadway performance here in Salt Lake of a musical called Dear Evan Hansen. And we're so excited, and we had prepared for a long time, and we show up at the theater last night, and sure enough, they had just barely announced that it had closed down. And it really made me think about all the different industries that are being impacted in really dynamic and severe ways. And just knowing the ripple effect that will continue to show up in the economy and in our lives. And here's the deal. If we are in a space of internal uncertainty, the chaos is going to rage in our life. But hopefully what you'll get from this virtual summit is the reminder that regardless of what happens out there, regardless of what's going on in the economy, regardless of what's going on in the world, internally, we do not need to get shut down or disconnected. Internally, we don't need to lose our sense of balance and certainty and confidence. Internally, we don't need to be drawn into the chaos. We can stand firm and strong. And that's the heart of true leadership. And so as we have this conversation of what conscious leadership actually looks like, my invitation for each one of us is to ask, how can I show up as a more dynamic leader in my own life? How can I show up as a more dynamic leader within my family, within my community, within my business? And you're going to be given specific insights and tools that will really support you so that during this time of perceived craziness, you're going to be able to step into a greater sense of power. So what we're going to be doing right now as we begin this process is we're going to start with priming exercise. A priming exercise is a way of us getting grounded and centered within ourselves. Priming exercise is a tool that we use to be able to align ourselves with the highest and best within us, because from that space, this conversation is going to have so much more strength. And I just want you to observe that on a day-to-day basis, especially when there's all this news all around us of this chaos, it's incredibly easy for us to be swept away and to become reactive to the conditions around us. And it becomes more important than ever to have these daily rituals or practices to help us ground and realign. So I'm going to invite my dear friend Tony, who is one of my partners in business and one of my own personal mentors. He's going to guide us through this grounding and this priming process. And then from there, we're going to move into the conversation of conscious and radical leadership, where that begins, and how to be a true influencer in this season and in this time of change. And so I'm going to invite everyone, as you're going through this priming process with us. It's just going to take a couple minutes as Tony leads us through some breath work, as he leads us through some gratitude and some, well, in our work at Legendary, we call this soul activation. It's the process of aligning our soul with our highest and best within us. And before it does this, I just want to make sure that everyone here that's participating today is reminded that as an invitation for those that want to step into greater levels of clarity, power, certainty, and purpose within your life. I'm inviting, I've offered 20 tickets to people that participate in this series to join us for our Legendary Breakthrough Intensive, which is in April 7th through the 10th, or June 9th through the 12th. It's a 4-day immersion experience, learning the skills of influence and mastery, teaching you how to reprogram your subconscious, teaching you really how to show up so you can thrive in the time of uncertainty. Tickets are normally $2,000, but I felt inspired for this group of people. Like, it's time for us to gather together as leaders more than ever. It's time for us to align, and especially when people are afraid of traveling, it's time for us leaders to have these moments where we can get together to support each other. So for those of you that can make that happen, I highly, highly encourage you to do that. And once again, that's my gift to you. It's a $2,000 gift. Just go to legendaryseminar.com. And when you go there to register, just pick the event you're going to come to and use the code word guest, which will take that registration page and price down to $0. So just want to extend that invitation. Make sure you take advantage of that. And so as we're going through this grounding process, this priming process, I'm going to invite everyone to participate regardless of where you're at. Just put your life on pause for a couple minutes, because this will help you feel more energy, enthusiasm, and excitement as we move forward. Tony?
Okay, cool. Thanks, Gerald. I want to, as we go into this, I first want to invite everyone to check in your body and get present to where you are. Now, I happen to have just come out of a hot yoga class, so I'm actually very grounded and centered, but at 3 o'clock this morning when I woke up, I had a lot of noise in my head. I had a lot of chatter. So often we get stuck in this low-level anxiety that we kind of carry around, and we tend to then cycle that and manifest more and more and more. So I want to invite you to check in with your body and get a sort of a reading of where you are right now, so that you have a contrast that in a couple minutes, once we've completed this breathing exercise, there's a knowing in you that you have the ability to radically shift your state very, very quickly. And so the breathing process we'll do with the 30 deep breaths. I like to kind of gulp them in and really try to get them all the way down to the bottom of my lungs. So we'll breathe and we'll go, oops, sorry, honked my horn. So we'll breathe in deeply and we'll just release whatever naturally comes out with our shoulders coming down. So make a big space for that breath and then naturally release whatever comes out. Now, if you're driving, pull over, because you'll probably get lightheaded. It's not safe to do this driving or in water. So we're going to do 30 really deep breaths, and we're going to hold our breath as long as we can. It's going to last like a minute and a half sometimes. Then we'll exhale out all that air, and we'll take one in, a really deep breath, and we'll hold it for 20 seconds. And we'll try to push it to all the extremities of our body. And this will reset your emotional state, because it'll put this pressure on the vagal nerve, which runs down the inside of your spine. So just follow with me, and I'll count. And so we can do that. So here we go, 30 breaths. That's 10. That's 20. 3 more. Last one, take it in, hold it. It's okay to get lightheaded here. Just get present to how good it feels when you have enough air to breathe. And eventually push this air out of your system. And then when you really need to breathe, we'll take one in, hold it for 20. Then push this to the extremities, the top of your head, the bottom of your feet. Push, push, push. Okay, now I invite you to close your eyes and just get present to this well-being in your body right now. Just move around a little bit. Notice the ease, the spaciousness, the greater well-being that you experience by just doing that for, 30 breaths. And then I'm going to invite you, we're going to do one more priming breathing type of exercise here. This one's a little bit faster. We're going to do really strong bursts of exhale. You're going to really want to push that out with your diaphragm, your stomach. Like this, just focus on the exhale. The inhale takes care of itself. We're going to do that for as long as we can. It's going to be maybe a minute. Then we're going to take in 3 really deep breaths. And on the 3rd breath, you're going to contract your stomach, contract your abdomen. You're going to push all this energy down to your root chakra. We'll do 3 times. We'll push really hard and then release, and all that oxygen will burst into your system. It feels really incredible. Again, this is a really good tool to radically shift your emotional state in just a couple of minutes. So just follow me. This one's easy. Here we go. Really punch that out. Okay, breathe. 1, 2. Last one, we'll take it in. Push. Push. Contract and push. 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 And now release. Close your eyes. Just get present in your body to this place of well-being. Notice the contrast of where you were a minute before. And as business leaders, it's so critically important that we step out of the chaos, and we step out of the noise, and we step out of the chatter. We step into this new place. This is how we get to neutral. This is how we get to reset. This is how we get out of the anxiety, out of the worry, out of the chatter, out of the fear. We step into this place of neutrality, and from here we can create. And as leaders, it's critical that we create our inner world first. Others will naturally gravitate to us. And so let's create some of the emotions we want to experience more of. And recall a moment, and just close your eyes and get present inside your body, but recall a moment when you experienced gratitude. And breathe in that gratitude right now. And then sigh out that relief that happens when we experience things that we're grateful for. And recall a moment when you felt loved. And just breathe in that feeling of love into your body right now. And again, sigh out that feeling of relief that happens when we feel connection. And recall a moment when something worked out really well for you. And that sense of satisfaction, that good feeling deep in our gut, when a vision, an idea, something we wanted to create turned out really well. Connect with that in your body and breathe in that satisfaction. Recall a moment when you received money. And observe the emotion that came along with receiving money, that often when we receive money, it's a sensation of relief, that we can take a breath and we go, I'm good. yeah, I'm good. Like our chatter brain settles down and we go, oh, yeah, yeah, I'm good. So just recall a moment right now when you received money and you felt that satisfaction and that relief, and breathe in that relief right now. And then sigh out and say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And now go ahead and open up your eyes. Gerald, if it's okay if I take a minute and talk about my vision that I had this morning. I woke up, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe it was 2, whatever it was. And, I was going through kind of the chatter, and I did this process in my living room. And I got really, really present to what was happening in my body and what was this sense of well-being. And there was this clarity that came to me that there is such a need right now for radical leadership in ourself. And what that means to me is I take control of my emotional state. My emotions are sovereign. Like, I'm emotionally sovereign. I am the one that gets to dictate which emotions I hang on to. I may not be able to dictate the triggers. I may not be able to dictate what happens in the market that scares me, or that brings up past traumas, or whatever that is. But I get to be emotionally sovereign. That's the first step of this radical leadership. And then the next is that we, as leaders in our businesses, in our families, in our companies, in our communities, because that's who we are on this call, we're all leaders on some level. And that means that in the chaos, when there's blood in the streets, when people are going around in this low-level anxiety and this worry and this uncertainty and this germophobia and all these different things that the news is propagating, and some of it's legit. And look, the changes in the market, they're legit. We got to pay attention to this stuff. But with all this uncertainty, we as a leader begin first by claiming our inner emotional state. And then we show up in this place of calmness. And I did this in a company it was a startup company. I'd raised $1 million for it from people that really trusted me. And we ended up in a situation where the company looked like it was going to go bankrupt. We had a business partner that we had to eject from the company. There was all this chaos. We were spending sometimes 2 to 3 hours a day on the phone with lawyers yelling in this lawsuit. It was just so much noise. And that's when I began to practice this emotional sovereignty. And I started to do this breathing exercise and connect with the emotions I wanted more of that day. And within like 2 days, my business partner was like, dude, what the hell's going on? Like, you're showing up so calm. And I was the one that had to do the yelling with the attorneys. It's like so much combat that we were having in the business. And I said, I'm doing this breathing. And so he says, can you teach me? I said, sure. So every morning at 8 o'clock, he and I would do it. And then all of a sudden our manager's like, what's up with you two? You guys are completely different. You're so calm. And none of the storm had gone away, but we showed up calm. And then we said, well, we do this breathing. And she's like, I want to learn it. So pretty soon she's on the call. Pretty soon we had 4 or 5 of the employees on the call. We had like all of our team leaders were on this call every morning at 8 o'clock. We do this breathing, and then we would begin to connect with what we wanted to experience more of. And the company absolutely radically transformed. People started finding solutions to things that we couldn't get over because we would do the breathing, and then we declare, today is the day that we found a solution to, this problem or that problem or the other thing. Today is the day we hit this level of profitability. We begin to speak into existence what we wanted to have happen. And as a result, our problems resolved. Our internal, like the inside of the business became calm and collaborative and creative. Even though the outside, I still had to yell at the attorneys. I still had to have the battle and go and be the leader and show up in that space. But inside, we became creative and we hit profitability, and we were able to sell the company for a profit. And it was a miraculous turnaround of a situation that seemed impossible. And I'm suggesting to each of us on this call that this opportunity right now presents to us the chance to rise up as a radical leader, and that the action steps of rising up begin with taking ownership of our emotional state. And to me, it's as simple as doing this process every morning. I have a simple process. I drink water, I do this breathing, and I go on a 5-minute walk, and I get into that peak state. It takes me 11 minutes to do it, but then I'm showing up as a true leader. So that's why we want to practice this at the beginning of the training today. So you don't just hear about it, you don't just think about it, but you actually practiced it. You experience a change in your body. You experience a calmness and a well-being, even though all of the external stuff's still going on. And that from this place, this is where we can identify opportunities. This is where we can tap into our intuition to make the right moves in our businesses, our companies, our families, and the things that we're doing. This is how we can pivot quickly because we're coming from inner calmness rather than chaos and chatter. So thank you for letting me share that, Joe.
Thank you so much. And it's incredibly valuable. And hopefully everyone, as you're beginning this call, you're feeling that. You're feeling the moment you get out of the distractions and the chaos outside, the moment you stop focusing on what's wrong and get grounded inside, then you start to awaken to new possibilities of what it means to be a radical and conscious leader. This is what the world needs now more than ever before. And just like Tony was mentioning, when we take time for ourselves, to become self-centered, to become centered, grounded within ourselves, then we can show up and give to the world in a powerful and intentional way. But if we're unbalanced, if we're in stress, or if we're in internal chaos, when we try to show up and lead from that space, we then just create more chaos and stress and disconnection and scarcity. So hopefully you're feeling that right now as we have this conversation. I'm really excited for the people that we get to have participate on this. I'm really grateful that Sean Callaghy is in the house, and he's going to be co-facilitating this discussion on conscious leadership and influence. And I just want to welcome Sean right now. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Sure, I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. I want to thank you for this awesome action step forward, taking leadership and putting this together. And yeah, that was a tremendous presentation. I missed the very beginning, which I apologize for, but I certainly caught a good chunk. And it brought a lot of things very present for me. So I'm grateful.
Yeah, perfect. I really appreciate that. And Sean is such an inspired leader, both within the Tony Robbins pod community. He has a massive business and law firm and has a movement called Unblinded, which is really making a difference in so many people's lives. So he's such a powerful expert to talk about these concepts of leadership and influence. And as we do this, I'm going to invite every one of you to pull out your notebooks. And there's 7 core principles of leadership that we want to talk about. And then we're going to dig from there into this concept of influence. How do we actually influence the world in a positive way, especially when chaos is happening? So pull out your notebook, and I'm going to give you these 7 principles of conscious leadership right now. I'm going to have you write them down. And then from there, we're going to have a discussion about these different things. Tony, me, and Sean are going to have this collaborative dialogue. Allison Larson, who is in the house, she's going to be joining us as well. And I'm going to invite all of you that are participating. If you have questions or if you have anything that you want to add to the conversation, any breakthroughs, just add them to the chat, because this is a dialogue. This is the purpose of bringing together a community like this, because to get together collectively, we're stronger. And as we start this foundation of leadership, before I go over the 7 principles of conscious leadership, I want to share a story that resonates with this idea of what leadership is all about. When I was young, when I was 20 years old, I had the opportunity to go spend 2 years serving as a Christian missionary in the country of Mongolia. And Mongolia is just like, it had just emerged out of communist regime and was a really beautiful place. I just fell in love with the place and the people. And there in Mongolia, they have this revered leader named Chinggis Khan. Many of you have heard of him named Genghis Khan. But Chinggis Khan came to power at the time where Mongolia was nothing more than these tiny little nomadic tribes that were often warring and battling against each other. And because they were these individual tribes, they would go from being controlled by Russia to China, and they were powerless because they were all these individual, micro units. And then Genghis Khan came along, and he came with a new vision. And in that vision, he said, what would happen if we actually came together and collect? And he rode around to these different individual nomadic tribes, and he shared with them this analogy of the arrows. And he would take an individual arrow. He said, individually, as individual tribes, we're like a single arrow. And the moment a storm comes, the moment an enemy approaches, as a single arrow, we are easily breakable. And he would shatter the arrow and demonstrate how easy it was for that single arrow to be broken. But it said, but if we unite, if we come together as leaders, if we stand as one, and he would take this great big quiver full of arrows with dozens of arrows, then all of a sudden we become unbreakable. And he would demonstrate how impossible it was for that quiver of arrows to be broken. And I think that's relevant to us today. You know, individually, as the storms come, if we try to stand alone, if we try to do it alone, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to stand the storms and the enemies that come to our gates. But when we unite and come together as leaders, as one, then we become unstoppable. And that's the purpose of masterminds. That's the purpose of community. That's the purpose of bringing together powerful leaders like Sean and his community and Tony and all of you that are here right now. We're calling together leaders because now is the time for us to stand up. And with that vision, Genghis Khan was able to create the largest empire in the history of the planet because of that one simple vision. And for each one of us, like, now is the time for us to not shrink back and hide and to stock up toilet paper and to be afraid of the end of the world. But it's a time for us to really think what is next and to have a stronger vision. So here's the 7 attributes of conscious leadership. Write these down. And then Sean and I and Tony are going to have this conversation that hopefully will inspire you each to step up and rise up in your own life. So the first attribute is clarity. The second attribute is commitment. The third attribute is confidence. The fourth attribute is centered. Being centered within yourself. The fifth attribute is creators. Leaders are creators. The sixth attribute is courage. And the seventh attribute is compassion. And I'll go through these again, but I want to lay these out so that we can start creating a channel for the energy that we're going to be creating today, so that each one of you, as you participate, you're not just listening to us. We don't give a shit about giving you more information. We care about transformation. Transformation is that space in which a meaningful shift happens in our life, so that the time that you invest with us today has an impact, so that you go back into your businesses, you go back into your homes more empowered and more clear of who you are and where you're going. That's what we're looking to create as we have this conversation. So let's dig into it. And the first attribute of conscious leadership is clarity, having a clarity of vision. And I think this is really relevant, Sean, for you in the Unblinded movement. You know, as you I know have, I don't know how many people know Sean's story, but Sean was a elite athlete, baseball player, just a rock star, and then he lost his vision when he was in his 20s, and he lost his eyesight. He did not lose his vision, just to be clear. This man has more vision than almost anyone else I know on the planet, but he lost his physical eyesight. And I want, Sean, for you to touch on the importance of vision, especially right now when the world seems completely focused on the chaos and the challenges. Why is vision so important right now?
Well, thanks, Sheldon. The more time that I spend with you, and we spent a lot of time in the last number of months, the more I'm inspired by your leadership, and I mean that from my heart. So thank you. So what Unblinded is about seeing what we don't see. And from my early days as an athlete to times of accelerating academically, going through, I was an undergrad at Columbia University and then to law school, to coming out and realizing what created acceleration and success for people, what continued to be apparent to me, what I saw, was the reality that most people didn't see. They had emotional intelligence, perhaps. They had high IQs, perhaps, or not. However, there was this massive disparity between the results that people were producing, and it wasn't related to talent. It wasn't related to intelligence, and often it wasn't related to whether they worked hard, were nice or not. It was related to things these micro distinctions that they weren't putting together. So speaking of clarity, couldn't agree more, brother, that having this sense of true understanding of what's possible and looking at what's occurring right now, for me, and I say this with empathy, as you said, leaders have compassion. So I have tremendous compassion for people going through. I have tremendous compassion for people that are ill. I have tremendous passion for people who don't have their eyesight, and compassion for people going through all sorts of ills. However, the statistical reality of what's occurring and the actual likelihood of passing away from this situation is something that is so incredibly unlikely for most people. Immune system deficiencies, age, and some other things certainly change the dynamic. At the same time, there's so many ways, driving a car, that our life could be over in a nanosecond, so many other issues. So being clear about the reality of where we are and where we're going, and Gerald, Tony, everyone, the thing that I'm most clear about right now is that the greatest thing that we can shift is people's fear in these moments with what you're doing here today, we're hopefully all collectively doing, and the people we impact. Because as we're in our fear, as we're in scarcity, as we're away from our abundance, and we're not realizing all the things that we can control and shift clearly, in the stage, I think that's where the challenge lies. So absolute clarity on the fact that the solutions for the challenges we face, whether they be within our own nervous system, our ability to influence other people, the processes that we're engaged in, that there's micro distinctions that are right in front of us, all of us, that we're simply not seeing, whether we're sighted or unsighted. And that job is really present for me.
That's really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Tony, I would love to have you chime in too, in terms of how does someone claim a vision right now in the moment that uncertainty is at its greatest, in the moment that confusion and chaos is creating the most, cloudiness in people's perceptions. Like what is a practical step that people can take to realign their vision with what they want, rather than getting stuck and focused on what they fear?
I think the first distinction is to really own that we're already doing it, right? One way or another, we're visualizing some future. We're imagining a future that hasn't happened yet, right? So then the question comes, what future are we actually imagining? We're already employing this. We lay in bed at night when we are about to go to sleep. When we wake up, those are the most effective times to program the subconscious. We're already doing it. Are we being intentional about it? And we just got home a couple of days ago from Nepal, where Gerald hosted a spiritual adventure retreat that we did. And one of the tools that we created during this event was a vision statement that we began to build statements and sentences, affirmations, if you will, incantations, different ways of doing it, of the things that we wanted to manifest more of in our life. And then, like for me, I recorded mine and then I mix it with Mozart music, because it's been shown in the brain studies to light up the left and right sides of the brain. So this morning, when I woke up with the chaos in my mind, and, first thing I did was I got back to neutral. Like the practical approach to this is, if you want to shift what the cycle is, if you want to break the chatter, if you want to break the, like anxiety and fear, they tend to want to keep self-generating more of the same. And so the first thing is we get back to neutral, which is why we started this training with the breathing exercise, because to me, it's the fastest way to get back to neutral. When I try to not feel anxious, it doesn't work. It's like wrestling my shadow. But when I simply do the breathing, it resets my nervous system and I feel well-being. So the first step, and I think it's a big deal to really make this distinction, we go to neutral first. It doesn't go from I'm looking at the sun shining. It doesn't go from the sun shining, in the middle of the morning to the middle of the night. It first goes, totally bright outside to the sunset and then the darkness. And it goes from utter darkness, doesn't go immediately to total daylight. It goes to the sunrise, right? So we have to do this within us. Just accept that our physiology is wired up to have a certain level of anxiety. Our ancestors that walked around a little bit afraid survived because they were always on edge and they were always on guard. So we already have that baked into us. So what we do first is we get to neutral, and then we start to intentionally shape our thought processes towards what we want to experience more of. If I can tell a quick story, probably maybe I started doing this in maybe 2003. I would get up every morning about 5 o'clock. I'd go sit in this farmer's field and I would visualize the life that I wanted to be living. I'd visualize the house I wanted to live in and the car I wanted to drive. And I'd visualize myself as a public speaker. This is before I'd ever done any public speaking. I visualized myself making $100,000 in a month. And I had this like a visit to Machu Picchu. Like I had these really specific things that I would do this practice and I'd tap into the emotion of how that felt. And over the next 12 or 13 months, I experienced every one of those things. And I was able to, because I had this vision and this focus, I took a lot of action. Then the synchronicities came together and I experienced all of those things in my life as realities instead of just visions. And then in June of 2008, I had my sales I was a public speaker at that point, and I think I'd made about $600,000 by June that year. So I was on track for a pretty good year. And June of 2008, the sales at my event dropped by 10%. And I went into complete freak out mode. I began every morning after that. I fired my coach. And then I would imagine every morning as I'd lay there in bed, the worst, the most embarrassing way my business could fail. And I would just like visualize it, not intentionally. I should be kind to myself in this. I was doing the best I could, but I was stuck in this fear pattern of thinking the fear. And I would imagine, I was teaching foreclosure seminars and I imagined my own house going into foreclosure and then getting a letter from somebody that had come to one of my events saying, hey, I see your house is in foreclosure. I can help you. It's like the most shameful way because I believed I just wasn't worthy of the success. Or if you really knew like my addictive patterns or my, the parts of my life I couldn't seem to figure out, then I wasn't worthy to teach. And so my fear started to cycle and I started to imagine those fears every night when I go to bed, every morning when I woke up. And by December of 2008, my company was bankrupt and my house was in foreclosure. And it was this really interesting experience to actually get a letter from somebody saying, hey, I'll buy, I see your house is in foreclosure. I'll buy your house. I taught 10,000 people how to write these letters, right? And I got that letter, but then it was like the summertime. I remember I had nothing going on except my yoga class. I was in hiding in my life. And I went outside, it was the summertime, and I opened the mailbox and there was this letter and I knew what it was because I'd sent thousands of them. And I read the letter and it was a really shitty letter. And I was like, there's no way this was my student. My students would have written a way better letter. But I read this letter and I look around on my street and it's just me in the mailbox. There wasn't 10,000 people laughing at me and going, see, we told you couldn't do it. And it was this really interesting moment of going, wow, this is the place that I feared. That's amazing. Like I feared this moment so much. But I think it's really important. The reason I bring up the story is I was following the same principles of visualization to manifest that outcome in my life as I was following to manifest the house in the first place. And when I shifted my visualization after that to working things out with the bank, to the satisfaction of resolution, I had some out of like really very unexpected, miraculous things come together to then work things out with the bank in a way that nobody else had ever even heard of. That I'll tell you the story sometime. But the point is, we tend to go in the direction of what we think about with emotion. And so it's very, very important that we take control of this. So the first thing we do is we get neutral. We step out of the anxiety by doing the breathing. And then the next thing that I suggest that you do is you actually create a recording of tapping into the emotion of what you want to experience more of. And so then this morning I put my headphones on and laid on the floor and I connected to the energy of what I wanted to experience more of in my life. And I was just like, I feel really good today. Yesterday, I was literally, when I went to trade in the markets early in the morning before we did this training, I was literally like 5 o'clock in the morning shaking when I was standing on my front porch because I was so afraid of what was happening. I was like, my physically was shaking. I'm like, what the hell's going on with me? And I'm like, oh, I got to do my stuff. So I did my breathing. I got in the flow. I got in the zone. I actually made money in the market yesterday on the worst day of the crash ever. But I started out in complete fear and anxiety. So I'm going to suggest that we're already doing it and that the key is to become intentional and not let the external circumstances be our only guidepost, because there will be opportunities in this marketplace, in these changes, in these transitions, in this chaos that we're experiencing. there will be enormous opportunities for gain. And there will also be an opportunity that this inspires me even more for leadership, for us to go inside and claim our inner world and then stand as leaders because we're standing in calmness. It's not bullshit. It's not bravado. It's not fake it till you make it. It's we learn to get to this place of calm in the storm. And then we can offer something so beautiful to those around us.
Really appreciate you sharing that, Tony. And the reality is this: if we don't claim our own vision, the media will. The media right now is driving a vision for the entire culture. That's why there's so much fear. It has nothing to do with the coronavirus. Nothing. It all has to do with this fear that is being driven by the media, and it plants this focus in people's minds. So that's where their attention goes. And where attention goes, energy flows. And so that makes it so for us as leaders, we need to be more committed than ever to creating and staying true to our own vision and to disconnect from the programming that the culture has and to be able to plant that. Allison, I would love for her to share just a thought or two on claiming that vision. And then we'll dig deeper into this idea of leadership in the form of consciousness and the creation that we're going on.
Well, I love that. And, you know, for me, I was looking at quotes about leadership this morning, and I found this one. I've always really admired John Maxwell. He's written books on leadership, and I followed them. And he said, a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. I'm going to say that one more time. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to just briefly share an experience. Like Tony, I too found myself going to bed last night in turmoil, but I wanted to put a little bit of a different spin on this. We talked at the beginning of this recording about how there's leadership in different areas of your life. And we've talked a lot about business leadership. I'm a business owner. I get it. I understand. I wanted to talk about leadership within our intimate relationships as well, and in those relationships with our family and the people that we love. And it was interesting, as Gerald mentioned, my daughter and I flew in last night, and yesterday into Salt Lake, and we were supposed to go see this Dear Evan Hansen play last night. I was excited. My daughter was so excited. Gerald and I talked about this experience we wanted to create for our kids, and as we're blending our lives together, and our kids are trying to figure out, how that looks, we were so excited about this experience. And you can probably imagine our disappointment as we walked into the theater all ready to go. We were dressed up, we were excited, we'd eaten dinner, we got there early, and only to find out that the show had been canceled due to the coronavirus. And it was really interesting because it was my second oldest daughter was there, and she kind of went into this state of just being really grumpy and upset about it. And she went to bed feeling really disappointed. I went to bed feeling like everything was a disaster, nothing turned out, and was trying to be positive about it. And I woke up in the middle of the night just with all these feelings of just like I let her down, like even though it wasn't my fault, like everything was crumbling around me, and how was I going to create these relationships and this ideal vision of being this mom that provides this unconditional love and this mom that my kids wanted to be around. And I was inspired to listen to a meditation by Joe Dispenza. And it was really interesting because in this meditation, he had us do this visualization of what we wanted, what we would envision our life to look like. And my vision was this vision of creating this space where everybody that comes into my home feels this unconditional love, where my children are happy and they want to be around me. And it was just a beautiful picture. And then during this visualization, he had us match the emotion with it. And I had all these feelings of love and of gratitude, and just a feeling like we had this like cohesive family unit, and it was so beautiful. And my state changed just like that, from going to this vision of chaos and nothing works out, to this vision of just creating this opportunity of unconditional love. And the thing was, the circumstances were the same. The thing was, I was the same person, The only thing that had shifted or changed was my vision and the emotions that I matched with that vision. So a tip is to add the emotions with the vision as well. As you create that vision, it's not just about picturing what you want. It's not just about picturing the success you want in your life, picturing the success you want in your relationships, picturing the success you want in your vision, but it's about feeling it. It's about feeling that love and that gratitude. And immediately, once you start being who you see in that vision, once you start feeling that way, then those are the things that you're going to attract. Those are the things that you're going to look for in your life. And there's some other steps that I'd love to share throughout this training on ways that I've been able to, throughout my life, add action steps along with those visions to be able to have a really specific process along with my study and my book I wrote on intuition to be able to create that action as well. But as far as the vision is concerned, it's adding that emotion and that feeling along with the vision so that you actually put yourself in that vibrational frequency of what you want.
Yeah, so the vision begins with a vision of who you are, a vision of how you want to stand as a leader, and then the vision of where you're going. People want to follow those who act like they know where they're going. And sometimes we might not know all the pieces. Like, we don't have a map for where we're at right now. But when we can know that how we want to show up in any given situation, then it allows us to stand in a space of commitment and confidence. And Sean, I would love for you to chime in and just talk about this principle of commitment and the willingness to stand and to lead no matter what the consequences are.
Yeah, no, thanks, Gerald. So what a great job by Tony and Allison. And what was coming up for me was a contrast. So vulnerable admission, and Tony's was so vulnerable. Thank you for that. As well as the opposite and standing in. So first, I often talk about 4 energies that are engaged in influence, and I make a commitment to experiencing and pride in those energies. And they are fun, where we're present and not taking ourselves too seriously, and we are finding humor in life. We're taking seriously our outcomes, we care, but we're not taking ourselves too seriously. Aspirational energy, second, where we're going higher, transcendent, going somewhere. Third is goddess energy and love. And Gerald, you sit and you certainly have a variety of the energies, but you display, Allison displays such beautiful goddess energy, the presence, the flow, empathy, connection, like present. And finally, Zeus energy, which is the energy of decision, and it's the energy of commitment. So when I think about being committed, I think about, and as Tony and Allison were sharing, what is it that I do on a daily basis to get myself into a position to lead? And I am first committed to varying my energies. I understand that if I'm Zeus all the time, or goddess all the time, or aspirational, or just fun, nothing is going to get accelerated. And if people follow, people are led, we're intentionally varying our energies and authentically varying our energies. Like, we are all of those things, and we're moving in and out of them at different times. In addition, I get into my body. So, and we talk about a lot with our team, selling, leading, litigating cases. There's multiple entities that I own. And it's about being out of our head, and we hear it in our heart. I add to that, certainly in our heart and in our body. And I release endorphins. I release oxytocin, at times adrenaline. We don't want to overuse adrenaline, where I'm physically exercising and moving my body to a point that endorphins are released into my nervous system. So even if it's during the day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and we all get hit with different things, at the same time, I'm committed to maintaining my ability to move through without avoidance, to approach intentionally anything that's happening and occurring, and to get myself into a place of being at cause, not at effect. And that doesn't mean power. Zeus energy is about deciding to be committed to standing firm. It's about being committed to moving through with flexibility. Like, there's a million different ways to get through. It might be directly through, might be pausing and standing. It might be overcoming. All of that is required. All that requires, though, is to be in our body. So physical exercise, physical activity, and then I'll listen to music. And I vary the music. So it might be Thunderstruck from AC/DC. It might be Bonfire Heart by James Blunt. It could be Badlands by Bruce Springsteen, or The Rising, or Land of Hope and Dreams. I have intentional music that accesses the different energies inside of me. And while that's happening, I go through a sequencing where I literally start moving, and I'm moving my body back. I start slapping my legs, my forearms, my body everywhere. I'm getting myself, my skin turned on, my muscles turned on, where I'm physically in my body and out of my head. My facial muscles, I'm in, like moving back and forth until I'm fully in my body. And you're probably noticing like energy increasing and shifting because I literally just did that. So I'm present, I'm ready, and I could vary it, like not taking myself too seriously. So it's not just locked into go forward. And it's that commitment, you know, Gerald, everyone, that I am very clear creates our ability to accelerate through the things that occur. Now, when news hits us, like when Tony opened that mailbox, that letter, I could feel that fear. Right before our Unblinded event, which I was so thankful for how that, the acceleration, what came together. We had 1,600 people that weekend. And right before it happened, one of the most incredibly painful, upsetting occurrences of my entire life went down. And I'm not at liberty to share all the details. However, it was somebody I loved, trusted, and cared about that was coming at me like a freight train with stories and to me, wild distortions. And in many ways, I thought that it was on the precipice of this occurring, and they were feeling insignificant in a variety of different ways. And that's my story. And because I couldn't even nail down what was actually happening. And I went back and forth 2 days before this incredible event for 12 hours, texting back and forth, calling, being so engaged and committed to the outcome of being right, committed to the outcome of having no distortion and misportrayal of me and our communication. And it was so unhealthy. I was so connected to the wrong outcome. And I literally was like present to the reality of how unhealthy it was and destructive and disruptive to where I claimed to be in the world, who I claimed to be in the world. And I thought it was God telling me that, listen, like, let's be really clear with massive empathy for people, that life is not as easy as you're thinking it is right now. And let me just show you. And so the next day I woke up and it was starting again. Like here he was coming again and I was matching and I was coming over the top. And I literally realized and connected to, and it was back to my commitment to my own self-mastery, what was the outcome coming up for the weekend. And I literally detached and I said this. I said, you know, like it's clear you're in a massive amount of pain. And it's clear that you have a story and a reality that's really upsetting to you. What's not clear to me is if this is somehow pretextual or you're genuinely upset, what's really at stake. So here's what I would invite you to do. I think it would be an amazing exercise. We're gonna have like 1,600 people there this weekend. You're aware of it, you keep saying it and keep saying really things that are what I could consider to be very cruel and unkind. So why don't you come? And why don't you come on stage with me for 30 minutes and you could say anything you want to say. And I could respond. And we'll go back and forth and we'll use this as an exercise in integrity and influence. So if you're in integrity, come to the event. I think it'll be unbelievable. I think people will be captivated. I think it'll be wild. And if you're genuinely saying these things and you believe them, we could work it out in front of people. And or I could see if you're lying. So you have a standing invitation, any 30-minute block, you want to come on stage and you get to talk first, it's yours, and then I'll follow up and we'll go back and forth. All of the energy stopped. I did not get another text message. I followed up half an hour. I said I wasn't being rude or cruel or unkind. I meant it. Please come. There's a lot of energy, a lot of charge, a lot of upset. I have a bunch too. I think this could be in service of people. We could tell our stories. We could talk about like what's happening and what you're feeling. I'll share my perspective and we could do something in service of people. No response. So it's this like remarkable example of how when we're committed to the wrong outcome, I was committed to being right. I was committed to coming over the top, dealing with my emotions, misportrayal, wanting him to feel upset, wanted to strike back and make him feel the reality of what he was. And all it was doing was creating more energy in the dynamic. As soon as I stepped back, it was truly in integrity, in my heart, committed to my outcome, it all shifted. Now today, on the opposite side of that, all these things are going on. I would, with humility but proudly, because I think we should all be proud of ourselves for the spaces that we operate more optimally in. I woke up today at 6 a.m. I haven't listened to the news. I'm not pulled towards it. I don't know what the stock market is doing. I am not sure what the latest accelerations are in terms of closings and ceasings. I have no idea. And I had our core members of our team at my house since 6 a.m. Some came at 6, some came at 7, building and accelerating one of our divisions at Carnegie Law, setting a massive timetable for live events, interactive virtual events, speaking engagements, ecosystem merging, and nobody was present to, the word coronavirus wasn't outlawed at all, and it wasn't mentioned. Because our commitment was to a much more transcendent outcome. Nobody brought it up. I literally didn't think about it. And until we were on here and that discussion was occurring, which is very helpful for people, and that's exactly what you're doing, Gerald, thank you. I hadn't even thought about it today. And so it's like, wow, like that's what's possible. It could be as simple as, and as suboptimal and embarrassing, quite frankly, is what I just shared with you. I texted somebody for 12 hours on Thursday before, or I'm sorry, Wednesday before our Unblinded event, our launch. 12 hours of insanity. My cortisol was still in my system. I couldn't have been more upset. I was talking about it. I'm like, can you believe this is happening? People were trying to pull me out of it. I was resisting. It was so unbelievably ridiculous. Next day gone. Today, amazing day is people freaking out all over the world. So commitment to our outcome, commitment to our energies, and being in our body. That's what's present for me, Joe.
I love that. I really appreciate that. And what you emphasize is really important is like, what are you truly committed to? Because our commitments are always going to show up. Like we're all committed to something. Our commitments are demonstrated by the choices we make. If I want to know what your commitments are, I'm going to look at your wallet and I'm going to look at your calendar. Your checking account and your calendar will tell me everything that you're truly committed to, because what you spend your time on, what you spend your money on is a direct reflection of what's most important to you. And so especially in this time of external chaos, where are you investing your energy? Are you investing your energy into what's not working? Are you investing your energy into being right in your story? Or are you investing your energy in the act of bringing to life something meaningful and powerful and being willing to stand in the fire? Because that's what I know as leaders, the commitment is demonstrated of how you show up when things aren't working the way you want them to. And your willingness to continue to move forward because you know that's what you're called to do. And so let's talk about this next aspect of confidence. And confidence, I think, is a really essential, central attribute of leaders. People follow those that have confidence. How do you communicate? How do you gain confidence? How do you experience confidence? And how do you stand in a place of confidence even when there's uncertainty around you? And so for this experience, I'm going to actually walk you through a quick exercise just to demonstrate, because once again, confidence doesn't come from your head. Confidence doesn't come from the idea or the desire to, hey, I want to be confident. You know, it comes from this deep embodiment within your soul, knowing who you are and knowing why you're here on the planet. So I'm going to give you a very quick experience of this. And once again, I'm going to give you the invitation to join us for 4 days at our legendary event on April 7th through 10th, where we get to immerse you into experiences that will have you walking away at the end of those 4 days more confident than you've ever been in your entire life. We're going to be giving you the ultimate confidence formula and experiences to help you embody this at a deeper level. And I'm so deeply honored that Sean is going to be one of our core facilitators as he comes to that event. It's going to be really an honor to have him there. Tony, of course, does events. Allison will be there. All of us are going to be there to help not just give you the concepts or the ideas, not to just share content, but to give you experiences to help you witness within yourself the power of your being. And so as I take you through this process right now, I'm just going to invite you to lean into it and just allow yourself in this moment to recognize when are those moments that you've gotten off-centered? When are those moments you've lost who you are? When are those moments where you've been doubtful or anxious or stressed? And recognize what those thoughts have been that have created that. What are the stories? What are the ideas? What are the beliefs that keep you from showing up most powerfully in the world? And it could be maybe I'm not lovable, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or this is too hard, or money's too difficult, or I'm not a good leader, or I'm not good at business. And identify what that thought, what that belief has been that has kept you from being able to experience within yourself that true leadership. So I'm going to have you witness that version of you, because it's important to understand that we have these different identities through which we create our life. When we're creating from that version of us that lacks, that's built in scarcity or fear or doubt, we just create more insecurity and scarcity in our life. So it's important that we know how to transition and get back into a space of embodied confidence. And so to do this, I'm going to actually just walk you through a very, very quick visualization process, so you can see how fast it can be to step back into being aligned with your highest and best self. So just close your eyes right now and take a big deep breath in. As Tony was mentioning earlier, breath is our key for resetting the nervous system within our brain, to be able to clear the neural pathways and to allow us to become present. So take a big deep breath in and just feel that energy flowing through your body. And just release and exhale any stress, any scarcity, any fear. Take another big deep breath in and allow yourself to stand in the physiology. Feel your body step into being your highest and best self, that most courageous and confident version. How would you sit? How would you stand if you were absolutely unstoppable? Feel that in your body right now. Put your shoulders back. Put yourself in the superhero pose. And there's something really dynamic about body language and being able to give the signals to our brain of how we want to show up. So embody that physiologically right now. Put yourself in your superhero pose. And right now, in your mind's eye, see yourself at these moments in life where you felt absolutely unstoppable. Allow yourself to see a picture in your mind from the past of when you accomplished something meaningful, when you did something hard, when you took on a challenge and you overcome it. Right now, see that picture clearly in your minds right now, and just breathe that in and allow that to become even 10 times stronger right now. And right now, see a picture of yourself in your mind. Imagine you're looking in the mirror, and as you look back at yourself, you see this hero, you see this victor, you see this person that is able to take on challenges and problems that other people would be afraid of, but you know that you're unstoppable. Just feel that in your body right now, and just see those pictures and focus on that vision right now as you feel that. And right now, focus on the words that inspire and motivate you. Right now, in these moments, say to yourself the words that allow the highest and best to be activated in you. Say, I'm a leader. I'm powerful. I'm unstoppable. I'm courageous. I will defy the odds. I will claim my vision. I will overcome my enemies, and I will stand for truth. I am limitless in my potential. I am confident in my abilities, and I will stand today in absolute certainty and power. And just breathe that in right now and feel that. And just go ahead and open your eyes right now. And as you open your eyes, just feel that awakening that happens when you use your physiology, your focus, and your words to activate within yourself a sense of confidence. When you can step into this level of confidence in your voice, in your vision, and in your soul, people will want to follow you. You become a magnet for people because they crave that. And so in learning how to communicate confidently, just remember that when you are speaking with vision, do so boldly. Use the full capacity of your voice and speak with authority and speak with truth. And that confidence is really important. So the aspects of leadership we've talked about so far is having clarity, knowing who you are and where you're going. Number 2 is talking about commitment, being truly committed to what's most important. Number 3, we've talked about confidence, knowing how to walk around and stand in the space of confidence. And here's the great thing about confidence. It's not based on things around you being exactly as you want them to be. You can be confident regardless of the circumstance. A victim is influenced or affected or infected by the environment or the people around them. A leader is confident in their ability to stand in truth regardless of what's going on. So the next aspect relates to that is being centered, knowing how to find that calmness within yourself so you can be the eye at the center of the storm. This is incredibly essential for leadership, because especially in these moments of chaos and uncertainty, when you can find that space of stillness and peace within you, that's that still point is where creation flows from. And so I'd love to have Sean and Tony share your principles or ideas of how do you stand as at the eye in the center of the storm? How do you find stillness in the midst of chaos? What is your strategy to make sure that you can create from that balanced internal state?
Sure, can I jump in, Tony? And I'm going to kick it to Tony to go, please.
Yeah, Sean, I want you to start first, and then Tony, and then I also
I just want to share this. So while we're here, I'm sitting in a room with our team, and while we did that exercise, I had team members doing that exercise, so thank you, Gerald. Somebody came to the door from our team, from the office. My law office, there's 100 people that work in our Jersey office. They're about 15 minutes away, so somebody's looking out the window. We're in my library, and they're like, Matt's here. So Matt came in during the exercise. People like he's on this call and he's facilitating, and he's like, I just got to tell you something. So he came in with like really, really great news about something that happened that was unexpected as we're in this conversation and you're facilitating all this higher vibrational energy. I just want to share that. Like, it literally just happened. We're in the middle of that last exercise.
I love that. I love that. And what I want to emphasize about this is for any of you that have studied metaphysics, law of attraction, all these different things, it's this principle of vibration and frequency is what magnetizes things towards us. When we can be in a high vibrational state, we magnetize those amazing opportunities around us. But when we're in those low vibrational energies and emotions, then that's when we're literally attracting more shit into our life. And so I love that you're just demonstrated that, just having these amazing things happen right now. So Sean, I would love for you to share your principles of being centered, and then Tony and Allison, I would love for you to both.
Also really briefly. So I shared with you about getting committed and the shifting of four energies and being physically in my body. What I also do twice a day to get myself centered, because I do believe this principle, Gerald and everyone, that as you said, you can't convince yourself not to feel anxiety, overwhelmed. That's really challenging. So when those states start to rise in me, I do usually do something physiological to move them through me and away from me. If something, some stimuli, as you are, as a lot of folks on the line, we're all doing a lot. And there's a lot of things that go well, there's things that don't go well. So we have this stimuli continuously. So committed to being in that space of energetic shifting, like that's what I was talking about earlier. What I do each day, beginning and ending, in terms of becoming centered, a number of different things, but I think what I'd love to share mostly is Og Mandino wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World. And in that, he talks about 10 scrolls. And I modified those 10 scrolls as affirmations, or if you use Tony language, incantations that I'll say in a varied state. Some of it in a very sort of prayerful or meditative type state. Some of them more energized. But each of them are 10 things that I want to live in. You can certainly look them up yourselves in Og Mandino's book. I'm not going to share them all, but I'll give like a couple. So I wake up each day and say, today, I have, form, grow. I have, form, and exponentially grow great habits of mastery. I am them, and they are me. I say again, I have, form, and exponentially grow great habits of mastery. I am them, and they are me. Second, I greet each day with love in my heart for all of God's children and myself, and carry it throughout each day. And say others, the eighth one I say, there's a 1 and 2. The eighth one I say is today, I exponentially grow my ecosystem 100-fold. Every ecosystem I come in contact with, and every ecosystem in the world 100-fold today. So it's these types of affirmations that do center me and bring me back to my peace and calm of vision where I am. And they're all, it's beautiful. It's in Og Mandino's book. And I would recommend tailoring them a bit to whatever works most optimally for me. And I do that 2 rounds in the morning, 2 rounds at night. And I certainly do Pray, Believe in God. I do pray each day as well. So those are some of the techniques of what I use to center myself.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, Tony. What techniques do you use, Tony? I know you've already mentioned breathing, but if you could share any specific principles that you feel like are valuable to get people out of the chaos and get people back grounded themselves, what would you suggest?
Well, first of all, that was Sean. Hold on, I'm switching up my audio. That was Sean that just shared that amazing content, so he deserves the credit. You said thanks, Tony. So.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Sean. Tony, and then I was passing the ball to Tony. I know that was Sean sharing that. So I love that. It's really powerful. And Tony, I would love for you to share your piece.
Yeah, so I haven't met Sean yet. So I'm really I'm enjoying this thoroughly. I'm excited he's going to be at the event. So thank you, Sean. That was really, really useful and applicable content. So a couple things that I find that are valuable to me. I've got this podcast that I'm releasing here soon. It's called WTF, What the Flow. And it's all about getting in this flow state. And I say, create your own luck as a result of getting in this flow state. It's the synchronicities that happen when we get into this place of flow. But 2 practices that I find very, very useful to calm the noise inside me. And I don't know if I have extra layers of anxiety or if it's just the entrepreneurial anxiety. I've coached entrepreneurs for 15 years, and I think a lot of us have a certain level of noise, a lot of movement in my mind, a lot of chatter, all those different things. So number 1, going for a walk in the dark, especially if it's in a place that scares me, is incredibly useful. So where I live in northern Idaho, sometimes I go outside at night. This year I've been hearing wolves. So I hear coyotes often. There was a mountain lion that came and killed some alpacas about a mile from the house. There was a bear that came in our yard and killed one of our goats this year. So I have real wild animals where I go walking. But I find that if I go walking in the dark, it activates something in me that's so primal and so alert and so present that all the chatter goes away. And I get very, very centered in who I am as a being. And I find it very, very valuable to go and take each step, even though my body is so activated in fear and there's so much like fear resistance of each step. I have to will my foot to take the next step. And then sometimes I walk in the dark so slowly. If you saw me, you'd think I was like going in super slow motion because I'm just walking alone in the dark and I'm literally like willing my foot forward to be like, okay, next step, pushing through the fear and taking the next step. And that experience activates my intuition in such a profound and powerful way. The other practice that I found incredibly valuable, I discovered after I was in a car accident. I had a brain injury and I had to quit pretty much everything I was doing. I quit public speaking, was dizzy for months, couldn't read or write. And I found that doing Wim Hof breathing and then getting in ice water would turn my brain all the way back on for like 2 or 3 hours. So I started doing ice water immersion. And this one time I had all this problems in my business and I was struggling with my own recovery from the brain injury. I had so much noise in my life. And when I dropped down into that cold water, all of that noise, all of those problems went away because I was so present to the sensation of cold on my body. It was so cold. And then I took some deep breaths and I went underneath the sheet of ice on my swimming pool. And my head was resting against the ice. It was like holding me down on the bottom of the pool. And here I was under this freezing cold water, and this ice water was like drilling at my eyeballs. It felt like getting like just punched in the eyeball over and over and over. The sensation was so extreme. But within this place, everyone's like, this sounds amazing. Here's what I'm getting at.
I just want to acknowledge, like, I'm sitting here with Allison and I love how extreme you are. Like in terms of like this, and I can only imagine people like listening is like, what the hell? I don't want to feel like I'm getting punched in the eyeballs by icicles right now.
No, it was for real. I don't want to downplay. That's really how it felt. It was intense, the sensation. And I would only do it because it would make my brain come back on. I was desperate. Like I was just in this place of such helplessness, and I was injured, and that was the only thing that would make my brain come back on. So I would do it. But this one day, I was under the ice water. I was having this experience. There was all this physical sensation. And there was this experience I had that inside of all of that, there was something quiet in me. And that quiet was startling to me, because I've lived a life of so much chatter and noise and comparison and ego identity and all these things. But in that moment of being under the ice water, all the sensation of cold on my body, there was something so profoundly quiet that it shocked me. And it was like, holy shit, it's quiet in here. This is amazing. It's quiet. I didn't know it was quiet in here. And I like found this new part of me that I was able to access once I got out of the ice water. But I find, like sometimes there's so much noise, we have to do something to sort of shock the system to get back to our place of center. And so cold water and walks in the dark have been the things that have been the most useful for me, of like bringing me back into that moment and getting really present.
I love that. I really appreciate that. So we've got this mix of affirmations. We've got getting into a new environment in which we're being challenged to really stay present in the moment. And for me, like meditation, is an access point for finding a place back home. My brother has traveled around the world for the last 10 years with his Indian guru and master. And he was the one that first taught me this principle about meditation that really hit home for me. And he said, like, imagine in life, you're sitting at the edge of a pool and you've got a stick and you're just hitting that water. You're doing, and you're just hitting that water. Boom, 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 boom. What's going to happen to the water? Obviously, the water gets all agitated, it's all rippled, and then the sediment from the bottom gets all stirred up, and so the water gets really cloudy. So this is what happens when we're so busy doing, we're so busy thinking, we're so busy in that chaos of that moment. In order for us to find that clarity again and to get centered, sometimes we have to just stop hitting the water and actually allow that. And if you stop hitting that water long enough, what happens? The water stills down, the sediment settles down to the bottom, and there comes this moment where you look and you simultaneously can see perfectly through the water, all the way down to the bottom. And likewise, you see this perfect reflection, like a mirror looking up to heaven. And simultaneously, it's like we see the insides of our soul, and we can see the reflection of heaven within us. And I feel like that's really powerful. And so I went and did 10 days of silent meditation at Vipassana meditation retreat. And it's amazing to sit with yourself for that long, because you recognize very quickly how much insanity goes on within our brain. And it wasn't until honestly day 4 or 5 that the settlement started to get down to the bottom. But you realize this powerful truth. We are not our thoughts. Our thoughts will come and they'll go, but it's when we get attached to those thoughts that we then create emotion based on the thoughts, and thoughts spiral out of control. And so finding time in a space of self-mastery where we can still down and just become the observer of our thoughts and let them pass and let the settlement go down, those simple moments. And even if it's just 10 minutes or 20 minutes of meditation each day, it becomes a practice of finding our way back home. This place within our hearts in which our deepest truth resides. And once again, when you come to our legendary intensive for 4 days, we're going to do some meditation practice and teach you some skills of learning how to come back home quickly and easily. But this is really, really, really important that you know your own tools to get back here, especially when all of these stimulus around you are trying to take you off balance.
Well, and I would love to share, we were talking about confidence. And as we talk about confidence and clarity, something that's really important to me. So when I'm confident in myself, that means that I am am confident in trusting myself. I trust myself. I trust the decisions I make. I love how Sean talked about you have these different archetypes within you, and you have that Zeus, or I don't know, I guess goddess for me, that is that total decision maker, that is that decisive. I actually call her my princess warrior. And that is the version of me that I know with absolute confidence can step up and can deliver and will take care of myself and my people and my family and whoever else. In fact, the other day when we were in Istanbul, I had this moment, I shared this yesterday, we were flying back from Nepal, and I remember I was in the bathroom and I got overwhelmed with all the chaos going on. I thought, oh, am I going to be okay? Is my business going to be okay? Are my kids going to be okay? What's going to happen? And I got in this state of like total chaos and confusion. And what I realized is I'd been in my healer state, this beautiful state of caring and compassion and empathy, but it was not the state I wanted to be in that moment. And I took a couple of deep breaths. I laid down in bed and I called forth that warrior, that princess warrior portion of me, that portion of me that's decisive and that knows what to do and that takes care of business. And it was immediate shift. And here's something I do when I'm in that princess warrior for me that I can do to be able to make sure I have complete confidence and to build trust in myself. And that is to follow my intuition. And there's a specific practice that I do. And I would love to talk about this specific practice. It'll just take a couple of minutes, but I highly recommend it for anybody who's wanting to create their confidence. Sorry, I just spit on Gerald when I said highly recommend it. Sorry, Gerald, I gave you a little spit shower there. But I'm so passionate about it. But here's what it is. And yesterday I talked about how intention fuels intuition. So step number one, you have to know what you want. Leaders know what they want. And again, just to read this quote by John Maxwell, I just want to reiterate this because I love this quote so much. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. So first they know the way. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to end up? What's that vision, right? Your intuition, your soul, that inner knowing within you cannot lead and guide you if you do not know where you want to end up. When you come to those crossroads on that path in life, when you have choices to make, you can't be decisive if you don't know your final destination, if you don't know where you want to end up. So number one, figure out what you want. Number two, ask a question on how to get it. So if I'm wanting to create, specifically, if I'm wanting to get more clients in my business, I ask the question, how can I get more clients? If I'm wanting to create this strong relationship with my kids, I ask, and maybe it's just for a specific child, how can I create a stronger relationship with Adeline? If it's something in my personal life, how can I gain greater health and fitness? Figure out a question. So figure out, first of all, what you want specifically. Second of all, figure out a question around that. Now write that question down just before you go to bed. And then sleep on it. Let your subconscious brain work on that question all night. Don't think about it. Don't get in your head. Sean talked about this earlier too. You want to be in your heart, right? You want to feel it here, not hear it here. If you're in your head, you're dead. So you write it down, you go to sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you grab that same paper you wrote that question down on, and within 5 minutes of waking up, you write the first 3 things that come to your mind that are action steps. Leaders do. So they know and then they do. So, and it's crazy because sometimes maybe the question I write down is, how can I grow my business? Or how can I get more clients in my business? And my first action step will be take a bath today. And I'll think, what does taking a bath have to do with getting more clients? But as I trust my intuition, as I follow that inner guidance, what ends up happening is maybe I take a bath and I relax enough to have a flow of thoughts come to me about people that I'd forgotten about or people that I feel inspired to work with. Maybe my question is, how can I get more clients in my business? And one of the thoughts I get is go on a bike ride with my daughter. And maybe it's because I'm feeling out of balance in my life. So don't judge the action steps you get. Maybe an action step will be, write down a list of 10 people that you've met at events over the course of the past month, and figure out who, of those people you want to call first, and make a list and just start calling people. So don't judge what it is, but write it down and then do it. And as you do it, you'll notice results. As you notice results, you'll gain more confidence in yourself, in your intuition, in your ability as a leader. And then the third step John Maxwell talked about was show others how to do it. So once you get those downloads, once you get those thoughts, once you get those inspired ideas, don't keep them to yourself. I mean, I think of life as like this road, right? And we're all on this pathway, this road to a final destination, which is happiness and success and fulfillment. And as we're driving along this road, there are some people that are further ahead and some people that are behind us. And the ones that are further ahead of us on this path of success, of happiness, of whatever it is in our life, and maybe it's just a specific thing, maybe it's somebody who's further ahead of us on that path of finances. Those are the people we look to for coaching, for mentoring. But there's always people that are behind us. True fulfillment comes when we share what we've learned, when we teach people, here's the path, here's the way, here's the roads, here's the turns you need to take to get to where you want to go. So share those things. And that's how I've been able to gain confidence in myself. I can look around me. There'll be 500 different answers if I ask 500 different people on how to gain confidence or how to grow my business or how to do this or that or whatever. And it is important to take into consideration the opinions of others, especially those that are ahead of you. But ultimately, it's that knowing within you that will guide you to success. It's your intuition that will lead you to the outcomes that you want. And as you learn and implement those action steps each day, you will gain greater confidence as you learn to trust yourself and your intuition.
I love that. I love that. So the next principle of conscious leadership is being a creator. Now, there's a lot of people, especially in economies like this, where there's a lot of industries that are like in a bed of chaos, where entrepreneurs freak out. They're like, oh my gosh. And people start restricting their spending, and they start retracting their commitments, and they withdraw themselves from the world, waiting for that time to emerge in which it's safe to come out of their hole. But creators are different, because understand at the core of entrepreneurship is this principle. Entrepreneurs solve problems for other people at a profit. That's what all entrepreneurship, all business is based on. And let me ask you a simple question. In a season like this, do you think there are fewer problems or more problems out there? There's more problems, which means what? More opportunities. And especially because most people are driven by fear right now, it gives this incredible space for the creators to show up and to lead and to solve problems in a meaningful way. And so leaders create experiences, create businesses, create solutions through which other people find access to what they want, which is important, because leaders are all about helping people identify how to get more of what they want in their life. And Sean, I know you're just such an inspired creator in what you do, and in both Caligie Law as well as Unblinded. Like, what's the key for being a creator and to be able to lead from that space of vision and creation?
That's very kind. Thank you, Gerald. And I was very impressed with Allison stepping into her Princess Warrior and Zeus-like energy. That was a very fun shift to watch. So thank you for that, Allison. So for me, we say at Unblinded, it's about influencers influencing influencers to merge ecosystems for 1 + 1 = 1 trillion, or at least more than 10 relationships to make the world an even greater place. And it's often that people say things and they're not truly attached to the meaning and the outcome. I think that's the genesis of the creativity that I think is possible for all of us. And when I think about creativity, Gerald, I think of setting outcomes that are consistent with my why or my legacy, for who I want to be, my ultimate destiny that I'm creating. And then I select the next outcomes that are out there in a distance a bit. And I don't get tied up with, Tony Robbins used the phraseology, the tyranny of how. I stay very committed in the initial creativity stages of thinking about my why, my legacy, the outcomes that are going to fulfill that legacy first. And I get very clear on what emotional states I want to experience, the types of people I want to do business with. And when I don't get clear about that, the wrong people show up sometimes, or I end up in relationships with people that I don't feel aligned with, and that's its own separate story. So in our creativity, I agree about having clarity, as you said, is the first principle of leadership today. But in that creativity, it's starting with those outcomes align with the why, and then dropping into all the beautiful different ways that those things can be created. And I start very broadly. So I'll say like silly things, let's say I have, my desire to generate X dollars. I could rob a bank, right? And of course, in integrity, you end up crossing things off the list, but sometimes I do it in fun to like just show the abundance. Or, maybe I could sit there and hope that I can find a treasure chest and like dig on the beach. So get like wildly open to just ridiculous possibilities, and I'll put them up there. And then I'll start getting more and more into the plane of reality. And then without any evaluation. So I'll brainstorm outcome, and I'll also begin to think about the relational or ecosystem resources that are around me, the people, the leaders, what's happening. And I look at this massive abundance, not in thinking about individual people, but in terms of the influencers that have influence over groupings of people, and how I could add massive value to those communities, those leaders, and create these like dynamic relationships. So I start very broadly with very creative ideas, and then I start thinking about people in terms of ecosystems and what we can create and co-create. And then I start to analyze the options more specifically, and of course cross off things like dig for buried treasure on the beach, although it might be fun, that's probably not going to create the outcome I'm seeking. And I start to eliminate the outcomes, and then I start to move back and forth in and amongst them. I always ground my creativity in this reality, though, that we so often underestimate the value that we can bring to people. And I think the greatest value that we can bring to people is what Oprah has shared. If you watch her final video of her final episode on YouTube, which is where she said that I held the microphone, meaning herself, Oprah held the microphone for 30,000 people, because she said, I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters to me. So for me, what that means is that there's incredible value that we can add to the lives of billionaires, we can add to the lives of sports stars and celebrities by saying authentically and genuinely, I see you, I hear you, and what you say matters to me. So when we begin to become not only creative with all of the possibilities of how we're going to create acceleration, and we're also creative in remembering the massive value that we can add to people so simply, and you put those things together, there's endless choices. And the greatest challenge to me becomes how we narrow those choices truly to what we're going to put energy into, because there's such a massive abundance of creative possibility. So there's just a few thoughts that I have.
I really appreciate that. And what I know is anyone that's created anything meaningful in your business, you've had to step into this space of like, okay, what is it that I want to bring forth? What is it that I want to create in the world? What is the purpose that I have, and how can I serve and bless those around me? And from that vision of what you want to create, there is this intense amount of courage. And I know for me, whether it be launching my real estate business years ago or launching my event business, which started 11 years ago, when I decided to do my very first event, just like Sean, like it's like this incredibly courageous journey where you're putting yourself out there and doing something you've never done before. And I remember that moment where I knew that I wanted to share my message. I wasn't even sure exactly what that message was, but I knew I wanted to give back. I knew I wanted to create an impact. And I love the world of events so much. And so I made the decision that I was going to put on an event. Now, I had this immense amount of ambition and very, very little experience, which is sometimes a very dangerous place to start. And so I made the decision within 6 months. I ended up creating my very first event, and we got over 1,200 people registered for our first event, just like Sean got like 1,600 people. Like, it's just this massive amount of energy and enthusiasm and pushing. But the challenge was I didn't know what I was doing. And this is where courage comes in, because you have to be willing to fail. You have to be, if you want to be great at anything, if you want to create anything meaningful, you must be willing to fail. If you want to be great at anything, you must be willing to suck at it first. We all begin from the suck point, right? No one is a dynamic communicator on stage without first stumbling and figuring out who they are and what their message is. No one's great at law without, being a bumbling idiot at the beginning and not having any idea what any of the words mean. No one is a great tennis player without beginning, not even knowing how to hold the racket. Like, we all begin from the suck point, but we must be willing to suck if we want to be great at anything, and to have the courage to fail forward. And so with that very first event that I did, because I didn't have, the experience, I didn't have the coaching, I just have this outrageous amount of ambition, I ended up losing $45,000 at that first event. Now, that I know that might not feel like a very inspiring story as we talk about creation, but for me, what's important about this in our journey of creation is leaders aren't afraid of failure. Leaders aren't afraid of loss. Leaders aren't afraid of risk. They're willing to do what it takes to learn the lessons in order to succeed. And so I don't look at that first event as a failure in any way. I might have lost $45,000 because I made some poor decisions, but it became the catalyst for learning in a way that by my third event, I made over $100,000 in a weekend. And that third event wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that first one. So I looked at it as a $45,000 investment in my education. And most likely, if any of you have been in business, there's been times where you've lost money. There's been times that things haven't worked out the way you expected them to. There's been times where you've launched an idea or you tried to create something and it didn't work out. But what if each one of those steps was essential to get you to where you're at right now, and the steps you're going through right now at this moment are critical? And what if, even on a global scale, what we're going through as a culture, as a country, as a global community, what if it was all essential to get us to the next evolution of who we're meant to be? And to have the courage to not be perfect in the process. I would love Allison to share these thoughts that she has in terms of how to access the courage that we need to be able to make tough decisions, because let's face it, leaders, it's not always going to be easy. There's going to be times where you need to make decisions that require you to dig from the depths of your soul and to be able to risk.
Well, I love that. And I want to read this quote about creators too. I thought this went so well with it. Brian Tracy said, "Leaders think and talk about the solutions. Followers think and talk about the problems." You say that one more time. Leaders think and talk about the solutions. Followers think and talk about the problems. It's really interesting, as I've watched on Facebook and on social media recently, it's interesting to see the different people that set themselves apart as leaders and the ones that set themselves apart as followers. And I think you know what I'm talking about. Those that are talking about the problem and those that are talking about the solution. I love, Sean, what you shared about your meeting this morning. You didn't even talk about the problem that's going on. You talked about how to create solutions within your business and within life and within whatever you were talking about to be able to move forward and to create that change. And it is hard sometimes. Sometimes you have to have courage. Sometimes there's decisions that you don't want to make. Sometimes there's things that you don't want to do. I remember a specific time for me. I went, just part of my story, I went from a reach of about 2,000 people a month to about 2 million people per month. And I went through this massive shift in like evolution and growth in this very short period of time. And as you can imagine, it was wonderful and hard at the same time. And I remember there was one moment, I had just gotten a TV show, and I was traveling from Idaho to California to film the TV show, and I was just exhausted. I'd just done an event. There were some things going on in my personal life that weren't ideal. I had this whole show. Not only was I doing the show, I owned the show. So I had to do everything. I had to make sure the guests would come. I did have a producer, but the whole show's success relied on me. It's not like I just showed up and did the show. And I remember waking up one morning when all of this was going on, feeling overwhelmed and stressed. I was in a hotel room in California, getting ready to film my show. And I got up early after getting only a couple of hours of sleep, and I just started crying. I did not want to get out of bed. And I remember thinking I had a specific choice to make. I said, I have two options. Number one, I can stay in bed and I can feel sorry for myself. Or number two, I can get up and change the world. So I decided that I was going to get up and change the world. And it took a lot of courage to be able to do it at that point. And I'm sure as leaders, there have been times where you have stuff going on in your life you don't feel like getting out of bed, and maybe sometimes you don't, and that's okay if there's days that you choose not to. But it's the leaders that are the change makers that have the courage to move past those moments of overwhelm, those moments of self-doubt, those moments of feeling like nothing's going for you, and to say, I'm choosing to get out of bed this morning. I'm choosing to go and make a difference in the world despite what's going on around me. And what it really comes down to is that decision. Do you choose to do those things that are hard sometimes and that make you uncomfortable? Or do you choose to stay in a spot of safety or in a spot of self-pity? And true leaders have the courage to make the choice to move forward. They choose growth, they choose impact, and they choose to show up in the world every single day.
Beautiful, so powerful. So we're going to hit the last principle of conscious leadership and influence, which is compassion. And then we'll circle up and have each of these amazing, inspiring leaders share their final thoughts. But compassion really is one of the most core aspects of true leadership. And that is based on the principle that leadership begins with you, but it's not about you. Leadership has nothing to do with you as the leader. It has to do with the people that you are serving and the difference you are committed to making in their life. So the question is, who are the people that you're called to serve, and what do they really need? Compassion is understanding their challenges and their pain, their problems, and whether it be the people you're serving in your company and your clients, and understanding at a core level what their fears are, what their insecurities are, what their problems and what their hopes and dreams are, really understanding that and caring for them enough that you want to help them get what they want. Or caring for your family, or caring for, those that you serve in whatever movements that you have. Caring for the people that you have in your audience on social media. Having this deep sense of compassion, recognizing that they're real people that have real challenges and problems. And how can we show up in the space of service? I'm going to read this quote, and I'm going to invite you to really listen carefully and write this down if it resonates with you. But this message of true leadership. Listen to this. A true leader has a confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. And say that again. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone. Do you believe in who you are? Do you believe in your mission? Do you believe in your cause enough that you're willing to do it alone if necessary? Do you have that much vision? Do you have enough courage to stand in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the critics that are going to come your way, trying to tear you down because they are insecure by the way you're showing up? Do you have the courage to stand alone if necessary? Do you have the courage then to make tough decisions, to take the risks, to take a stand? And do you have the compassion to listen to and to care for the needs of others? This is the embodiment of a conscious leader. And this is the people that will have the most influence in today's world. Not those that show up where it's me, but those that show up, it's like, hey, how can we create the greatest impact in the world and build a movement that matters? So I'd love to just give Sean and Tony and Allison a moment right now to share any final thoughts on leadership and influence, anything that's resonating in your heart right now that you want to anchor in. And I also am going to once again reiterate the invitation to everyone that's watching this. I've set aside 20 tickets for the people that are watching this series to join us as my guest at no charge to our legendary Breakthrough Intensive that's coming up April 7th through the 10th, and then again on June 9th through the 12th. This is because it's a call for those that are leaders, call that are out there to make a difference, to come together, to learn how to align your subconscious mind, to learn how to stand in a space of being centered, to learn how to gain greater clarity, learn how to anchor in your commitment for what you're creating, learn how to access greater confidence, learn how to stand in a space of greater courage and compassion. this 4 days that we're going to be spending together will be some of the most important days of your life as you move forward and navigate this time of transition. You learn how to thrive in the space of uncertainty. So once again, that invitation is there to claim those tickets. Just go to legendaryseminar.com and use the code word guest, lowercase, to be able to access your tickets. So that's my invitation. That's my gift to you as a way to show up and to serve this community in a meaningful and conscious way. And would love to have you there. I know Tony and Sean, Allison, and I, and the other leaders that we have coming are really committed to your success and committed to serving you as you come. And it's going to be 4 magical days, unlike anything you've ever experienced. So really excited to have you there. So Sean, with that, final thoughts on inspired conscious leadership and influence.
And Gerald, thank you. What's present for me is truth. And as leaders, it is what can block our desire and ability for truth is our fear. I've seen so many times throughout my entire life, leaders, high school coaches that confronted me and told me the truth when I was out of my own personal integrity about my workouts or my mindset or things that I was doing for the team in business, versus people who just say nice things to us and want to make us feel good, which is a beautiful and wonderful thing. It's truth, though. And the truth is that we're perfect the way we are. We're beautiful, we're incredible. And the truth is that we all have more of an opportunity to grow, develop, and contribute in this world. And the differential in what's going to occur there sits in that precise space of being truthful and full of integrity with ourselves. So that is what is present for me today. It's just that concept of having the courage to tell ourselves and others with empathy for ourselves, empathy for others, the truth of what's available in terms of accelerating. And quick question, Gerald. We do huddles daily in the morning. Is that something that would be okay to share? It's a free.
I would love to share that and have you share that. And once again, Sean has built this beautiful community called Unblinded, which is a powerful place. They have daily huddles, which is an amazing place for you to connect and to gain access to greater wisdom and information. And then Sean also has other events that he does. So yeah, please share with them how else they can access what you do and experience more of your wisdom. And
it's a great way to ground yourself in these types of principles of leadership and acceleration and influence. We call it Unblinded, Sales Mastery, Seeing What You Don't See, about the fun and excitement of exponentially growing your sales, and literally live every morning from 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. It's about 15 to 30 minutes that we connect, people share, it's inspirational, it's positive. And Gerald and Allison and Tony, I'd love to have you guys on sharing about your upcoming event. So let's schedule some time. I will hold this up as the number and ask Nicole. It's 646. Right?
Yep.
What do you got here?
5-8.
646.
558.
558.
8656.
8656 with an access code of
925.
925.
Can we hold it a little bit higher, Sean?
Oh, sorry. 925
445.
445
5226.
5226. So it's a phone number and an access code every morning, 8:30 a.m. There's nothing you have to enter. We will not know if you are there or not. This is for you,
8:30
and
Eastern.
it's 8:30 Eastern time. So Gerald, Allison, Tony, and everybody, thank you for this true blessing and opportunity to share a little bit. And I am inspired truly by what you're up to in the world, and your energy has such resonance and authenticity. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thanks you, Sean. Really love you and excited to play with you more. And it's great. So Tony, final thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay? My signal got a little weak there for a second.
We got you.
Okay? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sean. It's been a pleasure to interact with you. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you in April. Here's what I want to anchor home at the end of this is I'm just going to invite everybody to just close your eyes for a moment and just take a deep breath and get centered in you as a being, this living, breathing creator. And wants and desires, and just to lean in you. Often as leaders, we have this need to sort of hold things together, or to look stoic, or to be strong, or to do this. And I think it's in a time of uncertainty, and go, hey, I'm trying, and I'm learning new things, and I'm adapting. And this is something that our planet has never actually experienced before. And so just let that be okay. This is like an unknown, and there's all kinds, and just yourself that compassion of going, yeah, I'm being human, and I'm stepping up, and sometimes I'm falling off, and I'm gonna, and then take some of that compassion, and let's contemplate the people that we're with today, the other human beings on social, where we eat, where we buy gas, where we work, and inside that they might not have tools to deal with and to process. Remember that, and extend that extra layer of kindness towards the other human beings around. And I believe that this is like this compassion extends first to ourselves, to go, like, give yourself a break. And
Tony, I think we lost you.
I'm back. Still there?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I just want to finish with this of saying, have some compassion, extend it to yourself, give yourself a pat on the back, celebrate that you're a leader and you're stepping up, you're stepping into the ring, and then have that extra layer of compassion for these people around us. That let's all embrace each other and go, hey, we're humans on a planet that just caught a cold, and we haven't ever caught a cold as a planet before. And to have some kindness as we go forward in this.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you, Tony. And what a beautiful reminder. Not everyone has the tools that we've been blessed with. So how can we show up as leaders and having compassion for those people? Allison?
Thank you. Tony and I must be channeling the same energy source right now, because that's exactly what came to my mind when you asked what are your final thoughts, is just, I think showing other people compassion is really important. There'll be people that you work with as a leader, like Sean shared earlier, that don't show up in the best ways for you. But as a leader, you have a choice to become reactionary or to be actionary, to act how you feel like is in alignment for you to act as a leader. So have compassion on those people for what they're going through, for being in a place where they are hurting. And I love how Sean ended that story with how he acknowledged that that person must be in pain. But also having compassion for yourself. As leaders, there's gonna be times that you mess up. There's going to be times that you do stuff that you don't want to do, or that you look back and think that is not in alignment with being a leader. There's going to be times where you don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning and you choose to stay in bed all day, and that's okay. So like Tony said, just have that compassion for yourself, love yourself, and acknowledge yourself for the great impact that you're making in the world. And I just want to say thank you to Gerald for putting this together and for being that leader that would step up during this time of chaos. I also want to thank each of you who have taken time to be on here, Sean and Tony, who've shared with us, but also all of you who are attending. Thank you for investing your time to listen to us, to step up as leaders. Not only thank you to you as individuals, but also thank you on behalf of all of those people in your life that are going to benefit from you taking this time to learn about becoming a leader and to be able to implement those principles in your life. You will make a great impact as you continue to step up as a leader. And thank you so much on behalf of all those people.
Beautiful. And just to wrap it all together, like I just want to remind you that you are born to lead. Like, you matter more than you can possibly know. that there are people that are watching you right now to see how you show up. And the world is begging you to show up in a powerful and conscious way. And so share your message courageously, because the people need those reminders. You know, I heard this this morning, that at the grocery store just right on the corner next to me, like there were these two people that got on this brawl, this fight over water. Now in my mind, I know that those are good people, that those people fighting over that water and literally beating each other up to get this case of water, they're good people. What would drive good people to do that is just an insane amount of fear. And when we can understand that that's the space that they're operating from, we can have compassion, recognizing that's not them. Fear drives us to do crazy things. But for each of us that are choosing to step into leadership, ask yourself, through which version of me am I making decisions in my life? Is the fear part of me driving my decisions, or the part of me that's driven by faith, that's driven by truth? And to make sure that as you're making those decisions, you are truly accessing that part of you that knows that everything will work out, and that you have the ability to claim the opportunity to lead in a powerful and intentional way, and to step into with clarity. Know who you are and where you're going. Have this vision for your future. Don't let your vision get infected by other people's fears. Number 2, stand true to this undiluted commitment to yourself, to your family, to your vision, that you will not be knocked off course by the winds of the storm. Number 3, have confidence. Remember who you are at your core. Feel within yourself this power to lead as a hero, and to recognize that people will lean on your confidence. And the greatest asset in your business and your life is being able to stand in a space of certainty, and to have your certainty outweigh their uncertainty. 4th is to make sure that you stay grounded and centered, that you find the ways to nurture your soul and your spirit so you don't get knocked off track, and you can always come back home. Next, to be a creator. Share your voice, share your message, create Facebook videos, create events, create ways for you to bring people together while the world is trying to rip them apart. Share your voice because it matters, and build companies, build solutions that matter in this world. And with that, there's an unprecedented amount of opportunity that's available. And to lead with courage, being willing to fall down, knowing that it's an evolution right now. We don't have a map for where we're at. So have courage to take the steps necessary and to lead with inspired thing. And then last of all, have compassion, to stand in a space of love. For the people that are on the call, I just want to express, I love you. I'm so grateful for who you are. I'm so grateful for the light that you are on this planet. I'm so grateful that you have decided to step up and lead. And Sean, I acknowledge and admire you so much. I love who you are, brother, and so grateful for the stand that you make in so many people's lives. Tony, I love you. I love for who you've been in my life for the last 10 years as we've facilitated event after event. I mean, we've done so many events and changed so many lives together, and I appreciate your level of authenticity and courage and wisdom and humor and the way that you lead in your community. Allison, I love and adore you so much for the light that you are in my life, and for the way that you lead through this constant, undiluted space of optimism. And for everyone that's on this call, just continue to step up and lead, and your families and your businesses will be blessed because of it. I love you guys so much. Tomorrow we're having a powerful conversation. I'm bringing in an expert that is, he's an NLP master, and he's also a master of the financial markets. He's worked with some of the biggest financial firms in the country. And he's going to give you insights and perspectives in terms of what's going on with stock market, what's going on psychologically at a human level, unlike any one that I could imagine. He's a badass at what he does, and he's actually been on Tony Robbins' team for years, and is an NLP master, so that Tony would actually go to him for advice on how to navigate some of the change that's happening. So that's going to be tomorrow. So join us for that, and just love you guys so much. So if everyone can take yourself off mute right now and just send each other off with some love and appreciation. Thank you, Felita. Thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
And
See you
you,
tomorrow.
Jonathan. I'm really excided to have it join us in April. Once again, that's legendaryseminar.com. Include the code word guest, and we will see you soon. Love you guys.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.